Hello everyone, and welcome to another edition of 5 Facts. We are here today to talk about the 2019 film Joker by Todd Phillips. You've pretty much all seen it. It's made a lot of money. We're going to get right to the facts. Fact number 1, the actual mental conditions that Arthur has are kind of ambiguous, and that's for a reason. Todd Phillips and Joaquin Phoenix kind of cherry-picked various parts of conditions from a lot of different mental illnesses because they didn't want to single any particular thing out. They didn't want to make it seem like they were targeting a certain group of people that had an active condition. There are a lot that people have speculated on, and some of these come from actual psychologists. The main thing that we are centered on, though, is the fact that Arthur received a lot of traumatic brain injuries when he was younger, so most of what he has can be fully attributed to CTE, like what professional athletes get, what boxers and football players, all that get, or anyone that receives a TBI, especially like soldiers and things like that. The social awkwardness, the inability to talk sometimes, and especially the laughter. Some of the other things that can come from CTE are impulsive behavior, speech impediments, and just a whole myriad of other horrible problems that basically make it like you have dementia at times if the CTE gets bad enough. The laughing is what's known as a pseudo-bulbar effect. It's something where it doesn't matter what emotion you're feeling, like that. It's just something that can happen at inappropriate times. It's something where you've got this, it just comes out. A lot of people have it for where they start inappropriately crying. He had it where they were inappropriately laughing, and sometimes he actually had it both at the same time. This is sort of a thing where you can tell with like the rapid onset bipolar that some people have, where they can feel incredibly happy but be sobbing at the same time. And you see a lot of this in this movie where he's dealing with such conflicting, powerful emotions in a singular moment. He might be laughing maniacally while he's so disappointed or hurt, or even like the 3 different types of laughter he had in this movie. All of those, most of those come from like a CTE type injury from what we can tell. Many psychiatrists actually think that according to the hair test, Joaquin Phoenix would be classified as a psychopath. There are a lot of people who think that Arthur would have been considered a psychopath before he even got to his sort of vengeance and just kind of falling into the Joker role. He's not a sociopath because most sociopaths are actually affable, they're well-liked, they're able to communicate with people, whereas these sort of antisocial behaviors and psychopathy are a lot more like him, where he's just very isolated. He doesn't know how to handle himself in situations. He obviously doesn't have a whole lot of remorse or guilt or affect to his actions. Like the affect comes a little bit more through, but for the most part, he would be considered a psychopath. There's a whole other myriad of things that could be going on here. Whenever you've got more than one condition, it's called comorbidity. And I think that if you were to take a soup of everything on here, you'd see sort of a schizotypal personality disorder. You'd see a bunch of different things, not schizophrenia, but a lot of these combined to make up a very, very sad person who at least is aware that he needs help and wants help, but can't get it. And that's the biggest tragedy in this, before the murders start happening anyway. Fact number 2, the origins of this film intentionally strayed from the comics. Todd Phillips and Scott Silver found that the idea of a man falling into a vat of acid and being permanently changed into the look of the Joker was just a little bit too outlandish for a serious, gritty film. So while they did take a lot of aspects from The Killing Joke and from these other ideas that might have been part of Joker origin stories, the Joker himself says that his origin is kind of multiple choice. It's whatever he wants it to be in the moment. You get a lot of kind of just too far from the comics. So they decided that they were going to take a man and take that premise of like one bad day or a few bad days can completely change your life and make you go insane. They took that as a lifetime and they made it so that he slowly broke into something that was bigger than himself. And while they did this, they were avoiding the sort of the comic book stuff that was outlandish. They wanted this to be as grounded as possible. Instead of having makeup, he was just a clown. He did his own makeup. He did his own, like, trying to become the stand-up comedian. He tried all these other things. But like with The Killing Joke, he was a failed stand-up comedian. So there are a lot of things from these main, like Alan Moore and some of the other authors' origin stories, but they wanted to make it fit better into a gritty film, more like the Taxi Driver sort of thing, than a comic book. Each day they worked on this movie, they came and they challenged themselves to come up with more heinous things that could happen to Arthur that would push him over the edge in a realistic manner. And it sucks because you can see him starting to find some confidence, starting to find himself again, and then whenever he goes to Arkham and reads about his mother, it just breaks from there. It's not something where he can contain himself anymore. Fact number 3. There might be a very intentional link to Wayne Gacy here. For those of you that don't know, John Wayne Gacy is a notorious clown and child murderer who was murdered in prison. He actually has some weird connections with Todd Phillips. The most overt connection comes with the fact that the comedy club where he bombs badly is called Pogo's, which was the name of John Gacy's clown. Also, director Todd Phillips and Gacy actually have a slight connection through one of the first things he worked on. It was a documentary. The documentary was about G.G. Allin, and G.G. Allin was friends with Gacy. They were pen pals, basically. And Allin ended up getting Gacy to make a poster and the cover of that documentary. So it's more than just the name Pogo. There's actually like a slight connection between Phillips and with Gacy. I know it's a bit of a stretch to say that he had a huge influence on this movie. I'm not saying that. I just think there was an interesting connection, especially since Phillips used that art that was commissioned, and I'm pretty sure he paid for him, and he did give him a credit in that G.G. Allin documentary. So you've got an actual killer clown influencing a killer clown in the movie. I just thought it was a cool connection. Fact number 4, the De Niro connections. Robert De Niro is a legend in his own right, even if you take a lot of the last, 10, 15 years of movies and just see that he hasn't been putting the effort in that he used to. He's obsessive about his preparation, and he works very, very hard just to make sure that everything is right here. And this actually got reflected in this movie more than a lot of his other recent movies. But the De Niro connection between this movie goes very deep. The biggest one is obviously with Taxi Driver, where he plays a man with an antisocial personality disorder or a schizotypal disorder trying to basically kill people. You watch him as he sort of falls in love and then breaks, and then everything just kind of goes downhill from there. And it's one of the more legendary movies. And the reason why this is so connected is, first off, the plots are very similar. Second off, it takes place during the same trash strike, so probably the same summer. A lot of people think that this could have happened in the same universe as like the Taxi Driver universe that Scorsese built. Even though Bickle in Taxi Driver ended up being sort of a hero in that one, it's speculated that he would go on to do more killings and become the villain. So it's another thing where like it links back to like The Dark Knight, where it's like you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. The next big one actually comes from a movie he did called The King of Comedy, where De Niro played a failed comedian in a red suit that actually went and kidnapped a show host like he played in Joker. So you're watching him go from being basically the Joker character to being the talk show host, and also being the guy that ends up doing something to a talk show host. Like, he's got all these different aspects in his career, and it's just really cool to think about how it all layered onto itself. If they had hired somebody else to do this role, I don't think it would have really mattered that much, because a lot of people could do this role. But the impact on film is what's important here, and it's just cool to see him getting to come full circle in Taxi Driver, in King of Comedy, in all these other things, and just get to this point. Fact number 5, the toll this movie took on Joaquin Phoenix. Well, the very obvious thing that happened with Joaquin Phoenix was that he had to lose, I believe, 52 pounds for this role. He got very skinny, basically doing the whole Hollywood diet where it's like you have an apple, you have some steamed cabbage and some other things. It was mostly that. Also, he said that he was sort of taunted the whole time because Todd Phillips always has these pretzels he loves around him, so that made this movie even more difficult. But he said it was basically like getting to the edge of an eating disorder where you get so obsessive about every third of a pound, and where like just how far it goes and how far it goes and how far it goes. Did he beat Christian Bale for The Machinist level? I don't think he quite got there, but he's not that far from it, and I would say that this movie is going to have a much bigger impact over the long run than The Machinist did. The Machinist gets attention because of what Christian Bale did, not because it was a successful movie. Staying in the mental space for Joker was very hard for him. There were times where he actually walked off the set, and this wasn't something where he wanted his co-workers blamed, he didn't want the actors blamed, he didn't want anything like that. It's just sometimes he couldn't get to that dark level that it took. He was talking about how a lot of actors have a dark place they can go to summon this up, but he didn't have enough of that experience to really just do it at will. It took time, it took energy to get him into that space, and sometimes it just didn't work. The only person he wouldn't walk out on was De Niro, because De Niro is one of his favorite actors, even though he and De Niro seemed like they kind of had a tense relationship because of the way this movie was shot. They both said that they were very professional. It was great to work with them, but Joaquin Phoenix kind of trolled him a little bit here and there. He didn't want to do table reads. He didn't want to do it De Niro's way, so there was a little bit of tension there at times. Phoenix said that it took weeks just to get the laugh right because it was something that had to sound like it actually hurt him to do. It was something that had to come from deep in his psyche. It's something that he couldn't control and that he resented, having that laugh come up at so many different times. Even if he had to be crying during the scene, if he still had to find that laugh, and that was very hard for Phoenix to just get into sometimes. So it's very admirable what he was able to do, considering how hard it was to actually keep doing that laugh. And if you're ever at a Q&A with Phoenix, it seems like he has trouble when people are asking him to do that again, so it's just better off not to ask. Just let it go. Don't ask him to do the laugh on stage. It's like whenever I was at a panel for Robert Englund and people kept asking him to do the Freddy Krueger thing. It's hard on the throat after all these years. With all of this and more, I'm pretty sure he's going to at least get an Oscar nomination. I haven't seen anything else this year that would say that he shouldn't be the best actor, but we'll see how it turns out. I feel like with the heat, with everything that's behind this movie, he's got a pretty good shot. So many movies this year have been about a descent into madness. You've got Lighthouse and several others that you just see people kind of sliding in and not being able to stop and turning into something other than what they wanted. Even Dr. Sleep has a lot of references to this, and you're just seeing him try not to become that. And I think that this is a reflection on the times right now where you've got so many people afraid of so many different things, so much unchecked mental health disorders. And it's not even just that, it's that we as a society are a little bit afraid of ourselves falling through the cracks. And I think that's why this movie resonates so well, to the tune of over $1 billion for a rated R movie. The first one to do that. There's a lot going on here, and it's more important than just the surface level of a comic book movie. And that's why Todd Phillips created something that was near perfection. A lot has been made about this movie propping up incel culture and doing things that could be dangerous or problematic, and I really don't believe that. I think that the reason why this works is because it's authentic. It's not making victims out of people with mental illness. It's not exploiting the things that happen to them to make a compelling movie. It's just a case study in the things that are happening to this man and how deep he is and how far he has to go whenever he's just trying to get help, and how out of control it got. And I really enjoyed seeing this movie, even if I didn't feel good about it afterwards. This is not a feel-good movie. This is not one where I went out of the theater thinking wow, this is upbeat and powerful and everything. There's a lot of people who walked out of this movie because it was too dark for them. And I like that. I like that they were able to go so deep and not make a caricature of mental health, or not make a caricature of a character that's really hard not to because he tries to be one. You've got the Joker who's so over the top, but then you ground him in something like this. And even if it's not the Joker that eventually faces the Robert Pattinson Batman, I think there's a lot here to take away, and we should be very happy that DC took a chance on this after having so many projects that failed. They took a chance on something that really, I'm sure in the pitch room was a bit rough. It's the reason why Jared Leto tried to kill this movie before it got off the ground. There's so many things that could have gone wrong here, and instead they spent $50 million to make $1 billion instead of spending hundreds of millions on rubber CGI that didn't end up working out and was not good for Justice League. I liked Wonder Woman, but not much of the DC universe is working right now. If they start making these personal, intense stories, they're gonna find more success. And this is what comic books could be. I still love the Marvel movies. I have a lot of fun with those. But there's more that could be done there. The worlds could be taken in a different way. And I really hope that this is a lesson for DC, that they should be taking a deeper look at these characters. So I think that's all I have to say about Joker this week. I would love to know what you guys thought, how it impacted you, if you think that it was pushing a little bit too hard on the incel agenda or anything like that. Please put that in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for subbing. Thank you for liking this video. And also, if you are interested, check out patreon.com/humanechoes and become a subscriber. We got lots of cool pins, stickers, everything else. Talk to you guys later. Bye.